Um, oh, there it goes. Okay. Are we ready?
Yes.
Hello. Good morning. Good morning. This is People Power with Priscilla. We are the people and we have the power. And today I have my guest, Miss Sharon Hinton, good morning, Sharon. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes.
We are happy to be here this morning together again. Um, I'm, I really wasn't, I was telling Sharon I hadn't planned on doing my show today, but when I heard about what was going on with the Supreme Court and um, trying to reverse the voting act, I had to come on and talk about it. I don't know how many people know about it, heard about it. I know it was all on the news, but I didn't get a chance to see or hear any of it. But Sharon, I know you're on top of things like this, so tell us exactly, Miss. For you all that don't know, pretty soon we'll be instead of Sharon Hinton, it'll be Doctor Sharon Hinton, right?
Hopefully, Lord willing.
That's good. So tell us what happened yesterday.
So the decision, Louisiana versus Calais, the Supreme Court, this is what Democratic Representative Yvette Clarke of New York said. The Supreme Court has opened the door to a coordinated attack on Black voters across the country. Now, it happened in Louisiana, but she said this is an outright power grab. It's about silencing Black voices, dismantling majority Black districts, and rigging the maps so that politicians can choose their voters instead of the other way around. So this is from NPR. When I looked yesterday, it happened yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
the Supreme Court, and it was majority, the conservative judges voted to change a part of the Voting Rights Act. And the Voting Rights Act was put into law in 1965 by President Johnson. So what you're seeing from this administration is an attack on anything of color, whether it is the Haitian temporary status, right? And so, Representative Ayanna Pressley, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, has been fighting to get the over 300,000, almost 400,000 Haitians who are in jeopardy of being deported, reestablishing or not removing this temporary protective status. And there's a difference between Haitians in this country that were given the temporary protective status. So you see that. And then you see the deportation that's happening with Latinos, not so much Asians, but, so people who, except for the South Africans that Trumpty Dumpty brought in here willingly, who now, by the way, want to go back. All the people that are in this country, they've been in this country for years, working in this country, going to school in this country, born in this country. You see an all out assault. You see an assault by this administration that says, even if you are an American, and say if you were born in another country but both of your parents are American, he's trying to get rid of that. His administration is trying to get rid of dual citizenship status. And now this attack on the second section of the section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, um, which is basically saying that you can't discriminate because of race. This is what they're saying, that you can't gerrymander, you can't devise these districts based on race. But this Voting Rights Act was specifically around race. It was Black people that were fighting to be able to register to vote and to vote. So all of those people who I met in the campaign trail, Domingos met on the campaign trail last year, that were saying, "Oh no, I'm not political. Oh no, I'm not into that voting stuff. Oh, my vote doesn't matter." If your vote didn't matter, why is the Supreme Court justice in this particular administration trying to do whatever they can do, you
Get
know,
rid of it.
to get rid of your vote? So if it didn't matter,
Mm-hmm.
dum dum, then why are they going through all of this, redistricting? Now when so Jesus, this
We
goes
had issues
all the
with
way
our
back to
redistricting.
Reconstruction, right? Reconstruction, the Electoral College, and why people are saying that you should get rid of the Electoral College. The Electoral College basically was set up to be able to count slaves without being able to count slaves. Because at one point in this country, there were more Black people in the southern states than there were white people. But Black people um, historically in this country have been denied the right to register to vote and to vote. Period. There was, yes, and let's not mix it up. There was the whole thing about the suffragettes and white women trying to get the right to vote, but they did not. White women did not want to include black people or black women along with that. Black men got the right to vote before women got the right to vote. And Frederick Douglass was the one that stood up and said, "No, you're not going to do that to my sisters. You're not going to do that." And then the famous "Ain't I a Woman" speech,
Mm-hmm.
Sojourner Truth, ain't I a woman? So throughout this country, there have been waves and waves, and this is the 250th year this year birthday of this country. But and then Trumpy Dumpty, you know, saying that he wanted to make America great again. When was it ever great for us? Never.
Not for us.
Not for
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
And then every time we get these glimmers of hope of this country living up to its constitutional, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. I mean, we the people never included all of the people. It only included we the white men that have property. It didn't even include all the white people. It was we the
Mm-hmm.
white men who have property, and we were the property. So there have been, and Supreme Court has not always been our friend. A lot of times it hasn't been. This time it's proving itself not to be. And so, we can get more into what actually the Voting Rights Act and that piece, Section 2, that was the piece that was struck down yesterday. But basically, across the country, if you can look at, see, I'm looking at the chart, a weakening of the Voting Rights Act may lead to a record drop in Black representation in Congress. Why is that important? Well, representation matters. It just does.
Of course.
I'm a
Because
teacher.
we're not represented
Well,
like we're
you know,
supposed to be.
let's be right. Let's be clear. Just because, every brother ain't a brother
That's
and all
right.
skin folk ain't kinfolk. So
Yes.
just because someone says they're from your ethnicity or your race or your country doesn't necessarily mean, and we can talk about one particular person who I don't want to give his name any power, black man, on the Supreme Court who has not been representing us very well,
At all.
and he voted on the side of the people. I mean, affirmative action is what got him in there, and then he
Mm-hmm.
turns around and he tries to gut everything about people that look like him. So every brother's not a brother, but the number of U.S. House districts represented by black men of Congress from 1869, 1877, Reconstruction ends, and after slavery, Reconstruction, and then the federal government took away the federal troops down south, and then you had the birth of the Ku Klux Klan. So you had all of these. Once it seemed like we made progress, then you have these repressive moves to say, nope, stay in your place. And then
Yeah.
1965 was when the Voting Rights Act was actually enacted. And 2025 to 2027, in the 119th Congress, there was 63 seats that had black people in it. And right now, in the future Congress, there's at least 15 seats at risk. So we're not talking about one or two people. We're talking about a lot of representation possibly being eliminated.
That is insane. That the fact that they can do that, and what bother and one of the things is that, we don't exercise our right to vote. That's fair. But what can we do about this? I mean, what is the I don't know, I don't want to say what is the solution, but we have to, because there are some people that don't vote because they don't know the vote. There's some that don't know what voting means, understand it, because it was taken out of schools for one thing. And so, how do we how do we get through this or around this or fight this? What can we do?
Well, first we got to understand, what we're talking about, right? And so the Voting Rights Act, um, which is, legislatively was a crown jewel of 1965, was enacted as a comprehensive tool meant to undo the political hold of Jim Crow policies in the South, and related discriminatory structures nationwide. So it wasn't just the South. The South there was a focus on, but there's Mississippi and Mississippi, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so Congress adopted the law to ensure that states followed the 15th Amendment's guarantee that the right to vote not be denied because of race.
Mm-hmm.
Because of race. The
Mm-hmm.
law fundamentally opened political opportunities for Black and Brown communities to participate in all aspects of the political system on an equal basis. So, Section 5 of the law requires jurisdiction with a history of discrimination to obtain approval from the Department of Justice or court before changing voting rules. It's a process known as preclearance. Section 2 of the law allows people to sue, either on their own behalf or with the assistance of the Justice Department, to undo existing laws and procedures that would deny equal political opportunity to voters to elect the candidates of their choice. However, these protections have been eroded by the recent Supreme Court decision. So, in the difference in the Section 2 is saying before it was the effects of discrimination, now you have to show intent. And anybody that's gone to court or seen court shows or anything, it's like, did you really intend to kill this person or did it just happen? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So before it's like this is what's happened as a result of Jim Crow, as a result of all discrimination, segregation, the whole thing before. Now it's like, well, we don't know. If that's not what you intended, then this doesn't apply. I mean, that's a rudimentary kind of basic way of explaining it, but it basically it guts it. And so, when you had the nonviolent campaign in March 1965, you had voting rights marches in Alabama, the Edmund Pettus Bridge. If some people, if you look at the Eyes on the Prize, it was black and white back then, but you and I grew up when it was black and white. So it's not foreign
Mm-hmm.
to us. We were alive when that
Mm-hmm.
was happening. So when people are looking at us right now, they're saying, oh, that was black and white. That was way back in the day. No. 1965. This happened, the Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights Act, this happened during our lifetime
That's
now.
right.
And in our lifetime now is when these same people who had children and grandchildren are trying to roll back, because we're alive and we remember the people that were against us going to schools, against us being able to vote. That's happened in our lifetime in
Actually,
real
yes.
time. So we can do something about it now, and we must do something about it now.
Wow. Amazing.
Now
It seems like
you
the
remember poll taxes. I mean,
mm,
we didn't have to do that up north, but poll
mm-hmm.
taxes basically said that they were all sorts of just voter suppression. People, I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to use terms that people may have heard now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there were down south, you had to take a test to prove that you were
Right.
American enough to be able to vote,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't apply it to white folks. They applied it to us.
Exactly. How many soaps? Something about the soaps, counting the soaps, and how many this and how many that, which people had no idea, no clue. It's just that we have been misrepresented. We have been denied. We have been everything that we have tried to do has we've always been under some type of scrutiny or we're just racism, white supremacists. You know, we got Ku Klux Klan walking around in Warwick, Rhode Island, fully clothed. I mean, really.
Well, they were on the
Good
train.
morning, brother Jeff. Thank you. They
They were
were.
on the train. Remember the Orange Line, and a bunch of them were on the train, and they beat up this brother who's a musician a couple of years ago. I mean, that was only a couple of years ago. And then, um,
This was, I think, this was yesterday. Someone was spotted walking around in Warwick, Rhode Island. I mean, this is ridiculous. It's like they want to take us back, and it's like we haven't did contribute anything to this country, all that we have done for this country. And then we have a man that sits in Pennsylvania on Pennsylvania Avenue like he's the king, like, oh yeah, I'm the king. And it's funny because we do have the king and queen from England here. What's that all about? I mean, this has just been it's you could tell that time is running out. There's a book by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that says America is falling, and it definitely is falling.
I'm looking for my book around here, the one that I just bought called Black Tax. Um,
Oh, by the Black Tax by Sean Rochester, that one.
Hold on. I got so much stuff and so many books around here, child. I'm gonna find it. Um,
Is it
because I
by
just
Sean Rochester?
no, 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 that wasn't his
Oh,
name, but
oh, okay.
um I moved everything around so I could put my computer up here. Now I can't find my book, but I will find this book because, and I got a bunch of books. So I have another book, Revolutionary Suicide,
Mm,
Huey P. Newton.
mm.
The autobiography of Huey P. Newton. And when you talk about, what happened to that brother, I mean, so many times in our history, and let me be clear, we have always, when I say we, black folks and brown folks in this country have always been fighting against this. We never accepted slavery.
No,
It was
no, no.
imposed upon us, but we
Yeah,
never
yeah,
wanted it. We never accepted it. We never liked it. We
yeah.
fighting. We still fighting. Um,
You've
you
been
know
fighting
the
all our lives.
and before and before, because we're talking about 250. Oh, I know where the book is. It's underneath my computer. Okay, so that's why I can't find it. But so the Voting Rights Act has always been a target of conservatives in the Supreme Court since its enactment in 1965, and it's been renewed multiple times. Um, the court's decisions in recent years have often worked to limit its application. In 2013, Shelby County versus Holder effectively eliminated the use of pre-clearance. Following the decision, states that no longer had to get federal approval of new voting rules unleashed a wave of policies that made it harder to vote. Made it harder to vote. And so, in the absence of pre-clearance requirements, all civil rights groups have needed to rely more on litigation under Section 2. Section 2 was the piece that they changed yesterday to
Hmm.
combat discrimination in the political system. But lawsuits to undo these unfair rules are both costly and take years, and during which elections continue. And in 2021 ruling in Brnovich versus Democratic National Committee, the Supreme Court made it harder to bring lawsuits under Section 2. So Section 2 is key. But what are the prospects for the Voting Rights Act in the future? And I'm reading something from what is this? This is the Brennan Center, and the Brennan Center reports on a lot of different civil rights, voters' rights. So, in the years after the Voting Rights passage, the disparity in registration rates between white and black voters' rates dropped from nearly 30 percentage points in the early 1960s to 8 percentage points just a decade later. So, 30 to 8, that's a lot when you're talking about the difference. And the Voting Rights Act was reauthorized multiple times. So, when you have an act, it's different than a legislating a law that doesn't, but you can change either one of them. But this is
Hmm.
talking about changing a piece that constitutionally was supporting the Constitution, the actual
Hmm.
Constitution. So you have amendments, right? The 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment. Those are amendments to the actual original paper. So in 2006, the reauthorization passed both chambers of Congress with wide bipartisan support, passing unanimously in the Senate. The Senate right now is controlled, the House controlled by,
The Republicans.
well, the MAGA, which is not necessarily Republicans. That's the Trumpy Dumpty people, right? I just can't. And so the king, the literally king of England, to have him address the legislative body and for him, right? Let's be clear. 250 years since this country separated from the King of England. The King of England comes back over here, and he's the one that's making the most sense about democracy in the United States. He is the king, and even he said that there are boundaries. There's still limits. Even when you're the king, there's still limits, and you have to pay attention to these limits. And so Trumpy Dumpty,
But he's not
think,
the king. He
well,
Trumpy Dumpty.
even if he was, the king said there's still limits on your power.
Hmm.
That you can't just do anything that you want. But that's what Trumpy Dumpty wants to do, the Orange Menace in the White House. He wants to do anything he wants. I'll just rip down the East Wing. What you gonna do about it? I'll just bomb boats, that I think are drug dealers. What you gonna do about it? I'll just go there and stop, in the
I'll just go to Venezuela and kidnap the president and
and
the
his
vice.
wife.
And yeah, it's unbelievable the things that are going on. That we're actually living through. Who would have thought, right?
I mean, the court is not the final say.
Hmm.
Congress has a specific authority under the 15th Amendment to craft necessary legislation to safeguard the right to vote, absent race discrimination. So here, accordingly, a new law that adequately protects the right to vote for every citizen is well in order. The record supporting such a law would press the Supreme Court to respect a new and well grounded congressional response. So the Congress can push back. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
what can we do now? Everybody, I mean everybody, whether you're registered to vote or not, clearly you should be registered to vote. But everybody should be contacting their elected official and say, look, I want your voice to be heard to push back. Now
Mm-hmm.
that's difficult considering civics were taken out of the schools. So you
Yep.
got a whole generation of people. It's like, well, what difference does it make?
I
They don't
know.
understand
Yeah.
the three branches of government that's supposed to be the checks and balances, the executive branch, judicial, and legislative branch. They don't even understand that. We are dealing with the effects of all of that, but we're also dealing with the fact that people don't even understand in a democracy what makes up a democracy. And so, you know, Boston has the third largest population of Haitians in the country. Okay. So you have people, not just, I mean, immigrant population in District 5. You've got the largest percentage of immigrants, right? Black immigrants. And so when you think about people who are afraid of being snatched at the poll, at the school, in the church, at the hospital, on the street, because that's been happening here.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, regardless of the fact that it's a sanctuary city, which
Yeah.
basically says that the police are not going to help ICE unless it's a
Mm-hmm.
criminal situation, still, even if we didn't have that, there's still people who are not registering to vote and then not voting. So I
Right.
read yesterday in a particular newspaper that said it was the comments. It wasn't actually the article that said that Mayor Wu was elected by a majority of the voters. No, she wasn't. She
Mm.
was elected by the majority of the people who cast a vote, but that wasn't
Mm.
the majority of eligible registered voters. There's a big difference. And so
Mm-hmm.
when you don't come out to vote, you have cast a vote. When you haven't used you register, either you don't register to vote or you do register to vote and you don't cast your vote, you have made a decision.
Right.
And you've actually, if you, so all the people, I don't want to hear it, that are on social media that are complaining about this current administration, guess what? You voted for it. You let her either be in there because you didn't vote for one of the other three people that were on the ballot. Let's be clear. There were three other people on the ballot,
Mm-hmm.
or you gave lip service on social media, but you didn't go out and donate. You didn't go out and knock on doors. You didn't go out and pass out flyers. You didn't go out and put it on your social media who you supported and went out to vote, work the polls. I mean, there's so many other things. And I've seen people, oh, I'm not in your district, so I can't help you. Yes, you can.
Mm-hmm.
You can make
Yeah.
phone calls. You can pass out flyers. You can donate. You don't have
Yeah.
to be in somebody's voting district to be able to
That's right.
donate.
A lot of people that I helped support, I wasn't in their district for a long time, from when I first helped Garrett Saunders. He was in District 7. I was in a totally different district, but there's so many things that we can do. And one of the major things is to support and help. Like you said, you hold up a sign. You can pass out a flyer. You can donate. You can make phone calls. I mean, nowadays it's easy to put together a phone bank by Zoom, you know. Um, it's really sad. And, as we think and look at what is actually happening in 2026, and this is the, what, 250th year of them celebrating America, really.
Wow, that part. Um, so the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So the people are clear. 1965, and they saying lady never tells their age, and I am a lady, but I'm gonna tell you because I want you to know. I was born in 1955. The Voting Rights Act was 1965, and I remember as a young child marching with Martin Luther King in Boston. I
Mm,
remember.
mm-hmm.
When I was a young child, I was a member of the Nation of Islam. And so I remember going to the mosque on Intervale Street, which is
Mm-hmm.
where, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan came from. Malcolm X used to live on Dale Street with his sister Ella Collins. Like, come on.
Yeah,
Martin
yeah.
Luther King went to school here. Coretta Scott King went to school here. She was singing, studying opera at the New England Conservatory. He went to BU. Like, come on. We've had so many historic people come through here, not to mention the people that we know locally, like Reverend Michael Haynes, Dr. Reverend Reeb, who was actually killed during civil rights. My father was killed during civil rights. So the Voting Rights Act of 1965 is a landmark U.S. federal statute. It's a federal statute that prohibits racial discrimination in voting. It was signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson during the height of the civil rights movement on August 6, 1965. 1965. Congress later amended the act 5 times to expand its protections. What happened yesterday was to contract it, to remove it, right? Designed to enforce voting rights protected by the 14th and 15th Amendments to the United States Constitution. Remember, I talked about the Constitution and then the amendments. The act sought to secure the right to vote for racial minorities throughout the country, especially in the South. Let me say that again. The act, the Voting Rights Act, sought to secure the right to vote for racial minorities throughout the country, especially in the South. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, the act is considered to be the most effective piece of federal civil rights legislation ever enacted, ever. The National Archives and Records Administration stated the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was the most significant statutory change in the relationship between the federal and state governments in the area of voting since the Reconstruction period after the Civil War. This piece that happened, and what is happening is saying race can no longer be considered in redistricting the voting. But the Voting Rights Act specifically says race must be considered because for this country's history, racial minorities have been excluded. So now these
Exactly.
people are coming in and saying, no, you can't even consider race. Like what? What?
Uh,
What?
mm,
So this is, when you look at 1965, 2026, come on. And when you think about, Barbara Jordan, Coretta Scott, Cesar Chavez, so it wasn't just a black thing either, with Latinos and Asians involved too.
mm,
Fannie Lou Hamer, you know, sick and tired of being sick and tired. That's what you
that's
see
my
all the
girl.
time. That's Fannie Lou
Yeah.
Hamer. So
Mm-hmm.
the act contains numerous provisions that regulate elections. This is what we're talking about. And so the midterm elections, which are happening this year, this is what the MAGA group is trying to they're trying to maintain control of the House and the Senate. And
Yep.
so if you affect the voting and the laws that govern voting, remember
Mm-hmm.
last year they were saying that, oh, you can't feed anybody in the line anymore because there were these
Can't
long
give
lines
them
of people voting.
water. Can't.
You can't
Yeah.
bring them water and stuff, right? So they're trying to do everything to keep people from voting, changing the polling places. So people need to
Mm,
go on boston.gov, put in your address, look in the election department, put in your address that will tell you where your voting place is. I've seen people go up to places and they thought that they could have a mail-in vote and just drop it off at the polling place. No, there are boxes for you to put in, and there's a certain deadline for you to put in your mailed-in vote. There are early voting places.
yes.
It's not, this city is not, well, this country, but I'll talk about Boston. And you have the Secretary of State, Galvin, right? And
Been there
so,
forever.
well, Tanisha Sullivan tried to unseat him and it didn't happen. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of different reasons, but it didn't happen. That's the bottom line. So all these people are saying we need a change in leadership, we need to change administration. So
But
what are
nobody
you
goes to the
doing?
polls to vote for the change.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Um, Out of all of the people that just got elected, the at-large city councilors and district city councils, only one of them changed. And
One.
that's because one of them was pushed out of office.
Mm,
If she wasn't pushed out of office, we would have had
exact.
people,
Yes. Yes.
the same people. And then you have that 7-6 dynamic in
Yeah.
terms of the city council between the at large and the district city councilors trying to get stuff. I mean, you're one of, so there's 4 at large city councils. At large means it's across the city of Boston. Then you have 9 district city councilors, and that's supposed to be, the particular district, meaning where you live.
Yeah.
And some of those lines, I'm trying to make it simple.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the lines of where you think you are and where you think you live and where you think you can vote can change every 10 years.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
it's
Yep.
based on the census. And it's
Exactly.
supposed to be equitable to say, we don't want this particular place with all these people to have more weight than some of the other places. And that goes down to the gerrymandering and redistricting across states. So this is what it's saying across the country. You know, the in Texas, the MAGA group said, well, we're going to draw these lines, and it would disadvantage the black population or the Latino population. So California is like, oh, you're going to do that, so we're going to do that too. And so the fight back and forth is who can do this? When can you do this? And within, and you have a certain amount of time that you can do this. So within this year, we're not sure if there's enough time for other adjustments to be made to
Mm-hmm.
keep the damage that's being done mitigated,
Mm-hmm.
um, from keeping it from being so damaging that we'll be stuck with this for the next 10 years,
Yeah.
basically.
Right. Right.
Okay, I'm gonna
Um,
stop talking, but I'm trying to give
no,
people the
no, I
facts.
want you to talk because this is a lesson here that we're learning because a lot of people don't know it, a lot of people don't understand it, and the fact that we need to know this because, like you said, it's not being taught in school. They don't know nothing about this, and it's sad. It's really sad because this is the midterm. So if people don't get out there and vote, we will still be stuck with the House and the Senate and the White House and control.
In the
And so
Supreme Court.
in the Supreme Court, right? And so it's just it saddens because all the folks that that we work with, we think about the Mel Kings and the Chuck Turners and the Makia Baker Gomez and the Bill Owens and all those folks that were about us, helping us, trying to make change in our cities. They're all now gone. And so one day you're gonna look up and they're gonna be talking about me and you, Sharon, and we'll be gone.
Well, not
But
until I'm 120 with legs like Tina Turner. I'm going for it.
but it's just, while we're here, we're trying to do the best that we can. That's why I started Marcus Anthony Hall Educational Institute, so we could train our young folks the things that they're not being taught in school. Because it's like the Boston Public Schools really have kind of become like a joke. 1/3 of the seniors aren't graduating.
No,
Come
no, no,
on.
no, no. The 1/3, when you're talking about, so they graduate and they're trying to push them out, but we're talking about on grade level. So people are graduating, but say you graduate and you're in the 10th grade, 12th grade rather, a senior, but you may have fourth grade reading level.
Right. So, how far are you gonna go with that? Right. But
These days, who knows with ChatGPT? I mean, you might come out looking like a genius. I don't know. Not really, but I
yeah,
just want to
it's
go back to the act that we were talking about. So, Voting Rights Act has
mm-hmm,
numerous provisions that regulate elections. Regulate
mm-hmm,
elections. That's the Voting Rights Act. Its general provisions provide nationwide protections because it's federal and state. And remember, the reason why the feds had to step in is because the states were saying, they had bull Connors and stuff in the doorways. Like you ain't gonna be able
mm-hmm.
to. They had local and
Yeah.
people, right? State people saying, segregation now, segregation forever. That kind of crap, right? So the general provisions provide nationwide protections. Section 2, this is the thing that happened yesterday, is a general provision that prohibits state and local government from imposing any rule that results in the denial or abridgment of the right of any citizen to vote on account of race or color or membership in a language minority group. So it's not just people of color, it's people that don't speak English as a first language. Other provisions outlaw literacy tests, that's a piece we talked about, and similar devices that were historically used to disenfranchise racial minorities. Literacy tests. You got to pass this test. And the people
Mm-hmm,
that were given the test couldn't pass it. The act also contains, this is section 2, also contains special provisions that apply only to certain jurisdictions. A core special provision is a section 5 pre-clearance requirement. We talked about that before, which prohibits certain jurisdictions from implementing any change affecting voting without first receiving confirmation from the U.S. Attorney General or the U.S. District Court for D.C. that the change does not discriminate against protected minorities. Another special provision requires jurisdictions containing significant language minority populations to provide bilingual ballots and other election materials. When I went out and pulled my papers to just get on the ballot, right? And I remember earlier I said there's a large Boston has the third largest population of Haitians
Haitians.
in the
Mm-hmm,
country.
mm-hmm.
But I tried to get ballots that were translated in that language, like nomination papers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Election department didn't have it. I said,
Hmm.
how do you not have it in Haitian Creole?
Right,
You have it
right.
in Spanish, you have it in Vietnamese, you have it in Chinese, but
Mm-hmm.
you don't have it in Haitian. There's more Haitians than in Vietnamese. And they told me it's because legally we're not required to do it. So see, when people think it
Hmm.
doesn't, yeah, right. When people think this, well, this doesn't apply to me, but it does. But it does because I couldn't get here. I'm, District 5. You got Mattapan, not all of
Mm-hmm.
Mattapan, but a lot of population of Mattapan and Hyde Park speaks Haitian
Hey,
Creole,
right, right.
and so I had to have people on the polls and also going out campaign with me. I speak French, but I don't speak Haitian Creole at all.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sac passe, naboule. That's it,
Mm-hmm.
but a little bit now and then. But no, not enough to actually talk to somebody to say,
Right,
this is why you should vote for me. And there was another candidate on the ballot who was Haitian.
right,
So
right,
if you don't even have ballots or you don't have nomination papers in that language, then that
right,
is hindering. And so the Voting Rights Act even talked about that. You cannot discriminate against protected minorities, and you have to provide bilingual ballots and other election materials. And so, when you talk about the court didn't strike down Section 5. And so Section 5, but without a coverage formula, Section 5 is unenforceable. So that in Shelby County versus Holder 2013, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the coverage formula as unconstitutional, reasoning that it was obsolete. So you've got people saying, oh, no, we don't need that anymore. We don't need this because it's not really racial discrimination like before. They're talking about now versus down south. So you don't really need that. There's not really racial discrimination. There's not really segregation. It's not really all that. So we don't need it anymore. And that's the thinking. We don't need to say that we have to protect racial minorities because there's more of them than there are us. I mean, I'm just breaking it down to what people are
mm-hmm.
thinking. There's
Mm-hmm.
more of them than there are us. So um, that's where I'm gonna stop talking because we got very few minutes left, and you the host,
Yeah,
so
yeah, I know, but I really wanted you to do a lot of the talking. People, community, those who you are out there listening, we have got to exercise our right, this thing called voting, because we're going to look up and it's going to be gone. And then what are we going to do? We're not going to have anything. We're not going to have any type of say so. We are the people and we have the power. We have to start exercising our power. We have to start going to the polls. I always say the only time your vote don't count is when you don't cast it. But if they go and remove the us from even being able to to try to cast it or think about casting it, what are we gonna do? And who do we blame? We have to blame ourselves.
there's a
I
lot of
mean,
blame to go around. It's not just us. I mean, the system has structured itself in a way that you
right.
blame the victim, but there is responsibility that goes across the board. Yes.
Yeah, but also I mean, some of us have been around a lot, and we've seen these things happen, and we know what it's about. I mean, yeah, there are people who won't vote, don't believe in it. But at the same time, look at what we have. Look at what we're up against. And so, um,
I mean,
we
some of this stuff, though, the decisions are based on voter fraud. And then you look at,
mm,
there hasn't been substantially enough. Um,
evidence to show that there's voter fraud,
right,
right? Except
right,
for
right. And then yesterday, the Louisiana versus Calais Supreme Court ruling
and that
significantly
was
weakened
about. I'm
Section
sorry.
2, asserting that majority-minority congressional districts created with the intent of ensuring minority voters could elect candidates of their choice was unconstitutional. This is an amendment to the Constitution, right? Section 2, but yesterday, the ruling weakened Section 2, saying that minority congressional districts created with the intent of ensuring minority voters could elect candidates of their choice was unconstitutional. But it had to be enacted because what was happening to black people was unconstitutional.
Yeah, it's a lot of double talk. You ask me.
And so
um,
Justice Kagan said that referred to the decision as the quote now completed demolition of the Voting Rights Act. So you're seeing the chipping away chipping away when we have legislation that is ensuring. So we fought for it. We fought
Right.
for it. And you say, what can we do? We've been fighting for it. And then you see the system pushes back, which is
Right.
why I'm in school to get a doctorate education. As a teacher, it's got over 45 years of experience, public school, public charter, private, independent. It's like, why are our kids not being taught in a way that we can compete globally?
Right.
What is happening? And so when you look at the purpose of public education and how that's being gutted, and the Department of Education is being dismantled, and then the people sometimes who look like us, who are not us mentally, consciously, um, you know, not doing what they need to do to educate our kids and using all these excuses. I mean, Judge Garrity's rule has not, that didn't disappear just
No, it's still
because
there. Yeah.
it's still there, right? And so you
Mm-hmm.
still have people in the courts, as quiet as it's kept, fighting because Boston Public Schools, despite their machinations, has never reached the goal of 25% African American teachers, black teachers. Let's be clear,
Mm-hmm.
African American teachers, but then you have black teachers who are black, who do not know about our history, who are part of the problem. Not all of them, um, but there are teachers that look like us who are not like us. Some of them are on the school committee. Um, I
The
have to give a shout out.
appointed school committee.
Well, that's another whole show, sis. Elected versus appointed, right?
Yes.
And that didn't happen during this current administration, but it was after in her first term, Mayor Michelle Wu entertained the thought of having a hybrid school committee and then backed up out of it. So she had an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity, and this is a heavily mayor-run city. She's been reelected for 4 years. Tonight, there is an educational forum being held by Julie Mejia at the bowling building from 6 until 8. So one of the first things people can do is show up. Show
Mm.
up and educate yourself and find out what is going on. If you've got, whether you have kids in the school or not, it's going to affect you. The quality of the schools determines the value of your property. So if you're a homeowner, people buy houses in districts that have good schools,
That's right.
and
That's
so
right.
that affects the value of your home. So if you're a homeowner, even if you're not a homeowner, if you are a renter, the cost of your rent is determined by how much the house is costing the person that
That's
owns
right.
the house.
That's
So I
right.
mean, you think that oh, I'm not being, that's political. You think
Yeah,
it doesn't affect you,
but
but
it
it affects
does.
the quality of your air, the quality of your water, the quality of the city services. People need to understand when they're complaining and showing up to these meetings. City council's in there for 2 years. City councilors, if your trash is not being picked up, if your street lights are not being on, if you got potholes, if you the snow
All of the
removal,
above.
bike lanes, all the other crap. That's your city councils. Then you got state and federal. You got to understand who to complain to
That's right.
and how to be direct. I'm tired of going to these meetings. People are yelling, screaming at each other or at elected officials, and you don't understand what the system looks like. We have the responsibility to educate ourselves. People power. You can have
Mm-hmm.
power that's positive or power that's negative,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, rioting is the voices of people who don't feel like they're being heard. The demonstrations. If you're having a demonstration or gathering and you don't have a table where people are registering to vote, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
If you have a gathering and you don't understand the marching orders from when you leave there, most people they're not showing up. Tonight you got an opportunity. This is the second time Julie Mejia has done one of these gatherings. The last time over 200 people showed up. You and I were at the RCC a couple of weeks ago when there are a group of people that came together and say, okay, and there were six city councils that were there
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to be held accountable for their voting records and what they have been supporting. If you have a phone, you can call to their office, you can send an email to their office, you can vote them in, vote them out, hold them accountable, hold their feet to the fire. That's your job because your
Mm-hmm.
money, the
That's
whole
right.
thing, people don't realize the reason why we had desegregation was because black people were paying their taxes, which support the school system, and we weren't getting our money's worth.
That's right.
Worse schools, worse books, no books. And so we said, no, taxation without representation a couple of weeks ago was what Julia Mejia had a press release. I mean, That was supposedly what this, the Boston Tea Party, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dumping the tea tax. I'm a history teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Dumping the
Mm-hmm.
tea tax, and so you're not going to tax us on our tea if we're not getting what our tax money. And so you're paying taxes on your wages. You're paying taxes on your job. You're paying taxes when you buy food. You're paying taxes when you go to one of these coffee shops. You're paying taxes. Look at where your taxes are going. You're paying
Mm-hmm.
it whether you're political or not. Everything about you is political.
That's right. That's right. We're almost out of time. I think we maybe have about like 5 minutes, 5 minutes left. Um, prayerfully, I will be back in the studio next week. That's the plan. I'm hoping. This is April. Thank God I haven't been in the hospital at all. Last day of April, so I'm really on the mend. I thank God a lot. I'm just happy to be here. I'm kind, it's sad that we're still going through the same old stuff that we've been going through. But we have to wake up as a people. We have to realize that we are the ones that are being misled, mistreated, misrepresented. It's just sad. It really is. And so for one thing, we got to let this sink in. We got to realize that this is 2026. They're getting ready to have this big old party celebrating 250 years. 250 years for what? Of what? You know? And they're getting ready to do this big old thing and this, what is it? The Stan, no, it's not the Stanley Cup. What's that thing they're having in
The World Cup.
Foxborough? Yeah, the World's Cup. I mean, they always want to do these major big things. And we as a community just kind of like get left behind. But I really believe that how do we wake our people up?
By
Because we
having
do.
shows like this. And, thank Pastor Bruce Wall. Thank you for your retirement, Pastor Wall. But warriors never really retire, and he is definitely a warrior. He ran for office. You ran for office. I ran for office. If you don't like what's going on, then get up and do something about it. Say something about it. Um, if you Desmond Tutu said, if you are silent when injustice is happening, you're on the side of the oppressor. So
Mm-hmm.
even by not making a decision, you've made a decision. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so, this is a historic moment. It's within our lifetime. We've seen a lot of different things, but at one point we were much younger, and it was the young people, the teenagers and the babies and stuff that had the Children's March.
Yeah.
It was a lot of young people. We're not so young. We're young in spirit, but we
Right.
remember. So the young people they need to see the connection between your quality of life
Right. Right.
right now. The decisions you make today are going to determine your tomorrow. And you
Yeah.
can't just sit by. Oh, well, you could, but it's going to affect you. I mean, was the day before yesterday, there were three robberies in
Right.
Boston. That bank
I
robberies, I
I
mean,
know. It's been a long time since I even heard of a bank being robbed.
Bonnie and Clyde, right? I was like, what?
I know. I know.
But it wasn't just it was in Roxbury, Rosendale,
Mm-hmm.
and in Everett. So we just like, okay. So in summertime, it's getting warmer out there. There's guns. They're finding guns all over the street,
Mm-hmm. The
and
youth,
they're
they're
arresting
cutting
people.
youth jobs and increasing the police budget. So you know what that means, right? And so we like almost like practically out of time here. And I really, come on, people. We got to do something. We got to do better. We got to stand up and speak up and write letters, send emails, make phone calls. We have to. We are the people. We have the power. We just have to learn how to exercise it. Sharon, it's always good talking to you. We could talk for hours. Because we're kind of cut from the same cloth. And we do have our health challenges. We ain't young as we used to be, right? And but all
Well, I'm getting
praises.
younger. I'm getting renewed every morning. Great is thy faithfulness.
That's right. Yeah, but I thank you for coming on, and
Thank you for having me.
I really, come on, people, we got to wake up. I say this every week. It it's just like then I don't know. I wish I had the answer. I really wish I had the answer, but if we stay together, work together, pray together, come together. You know, we can make change. And there are some of us that are doing that, but it's just not enough. Today is Thursday, 6 to 8. We have our meeting at Torchlight, the Black Agenda Coalition. Come out, let your voice be heard. I know there's a meeting. Julia Mejia is having one. We're having one. I mean, it's
The
not enough
people
time.
united will never be defeated. The
Defeated,
people
yes.
united will never be defeated. God
Right.
bless you.
God bless you too.
Have a
I
seat.
think we are out of time. I see the 1 minute sign, but I know you'll probably be at that meeting at the school department. I'll be at the Black Agenda, but we will always be working together for the common good of our people.